Thanks for joining me to talk about Skyrim with the Requiem overhaul. And Requiem is my favorite Skyrim mod of all time, can't play without it, but over my time playing Requiem I found that there are several mods that I use that really complement it and now I just can't stand to play without. So I wanted to share those with you in this video. There are three criteria that I was looking at when I was picking out these mods. First, I want mods that are going to be compatible without patches, because the Requiem developers are constantly doing new development. That's awesome, but it does mean that mods that require patches, sometimes the patches lag behind the game and they eventually become unstable or incompatible. Second, I want mods that are lightweight and won't have a stability impact on my game, because there's nothing more immersion breaking than having a crash to desktop happen to you. And third, I want mods that will have little to no effect on game balance. Of course, any mod is going to make the game either a little bit easier or a little bit harder, but I want to keep as close to the original feel that the Requiem developers designed their overhaul to have. The first mod on my list is Alternate Start, which allows you to skip over the cutscene at the beginning of the game where you are riding into Helgen and instead pick a more immersive and role-playing friendly beginning for your character. And not only does this help get into your character from the very start, but it's also a performance and stability enhancer, because often the place where game crashes happen is on that cart ride into Helgen, because it has such a terrible effect on Skyrim physics. So I'd call this nearly a must-have. I imagine almost everybody has already heard of this mod, but I still see load orders that sometimes don't have it, so I want to recommend that you give Alternate Start a try if you haven't already. The second mod that I always include in my load order is a quality world map. And Requiem encourages you to explore the landscape in a more organic way by restricting fast travel, and it helps to actually know where you're going. In the default Skyrim map, it's pretty hard to tell how areas are actually connected to each other. A quality world map makes it so you can see the roads that interconnect the different provinces, and it also removes the cloud cover so you can see where it is that you want to be going. There's also a really neat paper version of the map if you want to get even more immersive into your character's journey. I'd call it a must-have for any playthrough. Getting a little bit more into gameplay changes, the Mortal Enemies mod makes it so that dodging and fast movement in combat is much more rewarding, because you can actually get out of the way of enemy attacks by moving side to side. What this mod does is reduce the amount of turning radius that both enemies and yourself have while in the midst of an attack. That means it's much easier for them to miss you or for you to miss them, depending on where you commit your attacks and what direction that you happen to be going. I think that this mod is an absolute necessity, because otherwise having enemies that should miss you actually hit makes it really punishing for particular builds that are lightly armored and are relying on manual dodging. I really enjoy playing with this. It reminds me a little bit of Dark Souls, which is always a pleasant feeling. Next up, The Choice is Yours gives you much more flexibility in deciding which quests to accept or refuse as you go through the land of Skyrim. Have you ever been partway through a playthrough and had your quest log look something like this, where your quests are either too low level or totally against the ethos that you're role-playing, but simply because you decided to talk to someone and hear out their story, you're expected to help them? Well, with The Choice is Yours, that's a thing of the past. You get new dialogue options which allow you to refuse quests, meaning that your gameplay can be much more streamlined and focused. These last two mods might be a little bit more controversial, because while I like them, I'm sure there are some people out there who will disagree. Number 5 is Bandoliers, and this is a carry weight solution. And while Requiem reduces the default carry weight for a lot of characters, that can be kind of unbalanced depending on what kind of build you're playing. If you're an archer, hauling around a bunch of arrows can take up most of your carry weight. If you're a heavy armored character, well, it's pretty hard to carry a backup weapon in that case, whereas light armored and mages have a much easier time dealing with low carry weight, and it's very slow within the Requiem system in order to gain more carry weight. What I like about Bandoliers is you can choose for yourself how much you want to be equipping, and they're also pretty immersive and roleplay friendly, as you can see on my character. There are vial holders, there's little pouches that I picked up from the Imperials, and I can decide for myself how much carry weight seems right. That's why I like it. Other people will disagree, but personally I find this mod very enjoyable. Last on the list is the Visible Entities mod. I read a rumor once that the invisible entities were added after some early playtesters complained that the Daedric artifacts were too easy to get to, so the original Requiem developer put in the invisible entities basically to shut those people down. While that's very effective, I think it also creates some balance issues, because depending on your build, the invisible entities can either be somewhat easy if you have conjured minions that can see them, or very hard if you're trying to do ranged attacks and just don't have any way to engage them. I've heard that it's a development priority for the Requiem developers to make the invisible entities a little bit more lore friendly and hopefully a bit more fair, but until then I'm pretty happy using this mod, which just adds a little texture so you can tell where they are. Obviously it makes the fights easier, but they're still pretty deadly, as you can clearly see. So those are my favorite 6 mods to run with Requiem, and I've got this list here of honorable mentions. I've put little exclamations next to the ones that I particularly highly recommend, but even with that, there are so many mods for Skyrim. I'm sure that there are some that I'm leaving out that other people really enjoy, and I'd be curious to hear what you have to say in the comments. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit that button. It helps me out a ton. Thank you, and see you in the next video.